Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to catch up with Kestner. Today, I have a coordinator that works for one of the largest tech companies on the planet, a University of California Riverside graduate with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, and a friend that I met through high
Right.
school. So go ahead if you appreciate stories about tech, if you appreciate stories about entrepreneurship, if you appreciate stories about minority empowerment or all the above, hit like, subscribe, follow, download the episode, whatever platform you're on. We both really appreciate that. Omar, aka
What a,
Xavier, thank you so
what
much
a
for joining me
build-up.
today.
Jesus Christ. What a build-up.
Thanks for joining me today, Omar.
Yeah, thanks for having me. 100%, Kestner.
I'm excited for today. But let's go ahead. For the people that don't know who you are, we'll start off. Who are you? Quick introductions on what you're up to. We'll start off with that.
Yep. So real quickly, my name's Xavier. He kind of gave everything already. I met Kestner back in high school, our junior year. I transferred over to his high school, now our, was it alma mater? What would you call it? Whatever.
Yeah.
And then went to Riverside for college, did a startup the year right after, and then now I'm working as a project coordinator in Amazon. I'm obsessed a lot with specifically the problems that people kind of have in mass and how they could potentially be solved with a technology product. That's kind of the thing that I'm always looking for.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll get into all that today. So, Omar, I'm going to dial back the clock a little bit. So, thinking about your time in high school, thinking about your time growing up, speak about the significance of earning your bachelor's in mechanical engineering from UCR. Thinking more specifically about your upbringing and how you moved schools a lot growing up, for example.
Yeah. My younger years were kind of a lot of moving around. So actually, I was born in Texas, El Paso, Texas. I lived in Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, Mexico for about 4 years.
Wow.
Moved to Texas for my 5th year, and then in the middle of that 5th year of my life, we actually packed it up and went to Hayward, California. I grew up with a single mom and a younger brother who was 3 years younger. So when we moved, I was 5, my brother was 2. And then in Hayward, California, I went to Longwood Elementary School. Then followed up, I went to middle school. Started off in Hayward High, and then went to LPS. Now, when I was growing up, I didn't care at all for college. Like any regular kind of kid, I guess. My mom was one of those like tiger moms who will always be like, hey, like whatever you want to be in life, whether it's a soccer player or a firefighter or an artist, like, yeah, I'm with you. Let's figure out a way to make that happen after you graduate from college.
Nice.
But it was never in my plan. And actually, it wasn't until kind of my sophomore year of high school, and then much, much stronger my junior year of high school, where I actually considered college. I was always kind of wanting to be a soccer player. I don't know why. Yeah, I think it's a Latino thing.
Nice.
Just like I wasn't even that good either. Like, I was like top. I was better than half the team, but I was never like top 10% or anything. So it actually didn't even really make sense. But I used to try a lot. I used to try hard. But like soccer was just like I didn't have a plan B. I was like plan A, professional soccer player. Plan B, who knows? Care. And honestly, it was a lot of combination of events. My sophomore year, we went through an event where one of our friends and classmates, 2 attempted suicide. One actually kind of went through it, and that was kind of like a huge wake-up call for me. My sophomore year. And then junior year, I transferred over to LPS Hayward, and I didn't want to. I thought it was a whole bunch of nerds. So I was like, nah, I'm not gonna go there. Sounds lame. But I heard that if I went there, like my brother was gonna have 100% like admissions acceptance
Mm,
into the high school. So I'm like,
yeah.
I know my brother's smart. Like he definitely needs like whatever support I can give him. Like this guy's gonna go far. I gotta be able
Wow.
to set that path. So I ended up in LPS Hayward, and my junior year I took calculus and physics, and that's when I actually like I woke up. I'm like, no, like college might be for me. Like calculus was the coolest thing
Wow.
for me at the time in terms of school. Like I never liked school until calculus.
Mm.
And then I think it was literally the LPS culture where we went in high school. Oh my god! Especially those
Yeah.
years when it was like brand new and it was so mission. I can't talk about later on. I'm sure it was still that kid later on, but when we went there,
Yeah.
so many things were happening at the same time, and everyone was
Yeah.
yes, let's go to college. I think it was that kind of just was the last water drop I needed in that glass to
Mm.
go through it and go to college. And I actually got kicked out my sophomore year of college. I went back in
Wow.
and I finished. Yeah, that's a direct answer to your initial question. I think that the reason why me graduating with a college degree in the U.S. was especially important was because my parents were very big on, you know, let's go to college. Like
Yeah.
my mom was the first person in her family to ever
Mm.
attend college. My dad
Yeah.
was that too,
Mm-hmm.
and my dad graduated in Mexico with a degree in mechanical engineering.
Oh, wow.
But then when we were raised by my single mom, she actually dropped out of college. She was studying computer science in the University of Texas El Paso,
Mm-hmm.
and she dropped out because she got pregnant with me,
Wow.
and then my brother came along, and she kind of always had the dream of going to college and graduating. That was like her version of success. So when she was
Yeah.
raising us, I feel like her version of success as a mother was very much based on whether her kids would graduate from college or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna say like she stopped caring after we graduated from college, but she kind of did. She was like, all right, I did my job. Like, you guys are on your own now. Now she's just very supportive about what we want to do, but now she's like,
Yeah.
I succeeded. Like, I'm done.
Mm.
Grew up in the same city. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think? Coming out from Hayward, right, which isn't like the most economically fruitful
Yeah.
place to grow up in.
Mm-hmm.
How were you approaching college when we were 16, 17?
Yeah, I think my upbringing was similar or some in parallel in some ways for yours, where my parents were really adamant about my direction in college. And right, I think the culture is different, right? When you say Latinx compared to Filipino
Yeah,
American, for example, have different upbringings, but at the same time, there's still this general understanding or this general belief that success is predetermined whether or not your parents believe that you should be going or pursuing college. And so my parents didn't really give me a choice. They said you're going to
yeah,
college, but at the same time, I bought into that. Right, I
yeah,
really felt at the time that that was my opportunity to really advance myself into a career, propel myself into something that I wanted to do. At the time, that was medicine. But besides all that, I did feel like college was going to be my next step out of this so-called small bubble in Hayward.
yeah,
And I think it's really important to recognize how, when I think back to your story, I really appreciate how prior to you coming to leadership or LPS high, your mindset really wasn't there in terms of pursuing
it
college.
really was not.
You mentioned definitely having an interest in soccer, which is super cool, and wanting to prefer or pursue professional sports in that matter. But right, college was never really something that you felt was attainable, or even let alone in your heart to pursue. And it wasn't until you got into this environment where you surround yourself with the right people in the right culture where you had this shift in mindset of saying maybe college is possible. And I really liked how you said that you mentioned a lot of that decision was also thinking about your family, because not just your
Yeah,
mom wanted that for yourself, but you thought about your little brother and the opportunities that would bring if going into a sort of better situation when it comes to high school, but just having that idea of guaranteed admissions, right? Because of the legacy program
yeah,
that you have going on. But it's awesome to hear that you took that step of diving in, right? Not wanting to really think about college in that sense, but really opening yourself up to that conversation, because I always like talking to people that, college is not really for everyone, right?
It's not
Some people prefer going into the workforce right after. Some people like pursuing trade
vocational
school,
schools. Yeah.
vocational, right? And all these different avenues. And a 4-year university, public or private, is maybe not for everyone. And that is totally understandable. That is totally acceptable, right? But for me personally, and maybe for you as well, I thought that a 4-year university was going to be my step in the direction that I wanted to pursue in terms of my passion. And I thought that was really going to get me there. So I still believe that to this day. I'm still a huge advocate for pursuing higher education. And it's not for everyone, right? Financially, economically, situationally, right? It's not for
Yeah.
everyone. But at the same time, too, there are so many experiences that otherwise would have not have gotten if I didn't go to a 4-year university, right? And those are 4 years that I couldn't have gone anywhere else, right? Let alone going to the same college, or even if I didn't pursue college in that matter, right? So I really try to humble myself and appreciate the time that I did have at UC Davis, and for you, UCR, of
Yeah,
saying
and
that.
during our time, right? Like
Exactly.
college is way different, right? Like right now, as we're speaking,
Definitely.
is very different to even just a few years back.
Hmm. So, let alone the experiences of online learning with the pandemic right now, but just even
Yeah,
being able to pursue what was at the time a really renowned university, 4-year public university in California. I was just very grateful, but also very, very ecstatic for the sense that I was given an opportunity to go there, because a lot of people that I know never had the chance to, or
yeah.
they didn't get accepted into their first choice college, right? I'm not saying that Davis was my first choice, but pursuing an education in Davis, pursuing an education in the UC system was definitely
Yeah.
a huge win for me and a huge blessing. So recognizing that a lot of it was mindset, but a lot of it was working twice as hard as other people that had the privilege to pursue a private university in Stanford, or, you know, these
And
Ivy
we were
League
also lucky,
schools,
though, right?
right? Definitely
Like we,
lucky. Definitely lucky.
yeah, like LPS is something in Hayward that's very special. Like if I were to have gone to Hayward High, I don't even know if.
The same opportunities would have come.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because LPS was just like so like college driven that they did like a lot of the
Hmm.
background work for us. Like they
Right.
you gotta do this, you gotta do it like this. This is how you study for the SATs. We do SAT boot camps.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a we got like very lucky to be at that right place at that right time. You
And
know,
it's crazy. Like, I love how you mentioned that, because I think of this like spectrum of, in terms of the public educational system, or public and private, is you have your really top-notch schools, right? In your, whether it's high school, elementary, middle school, that have really privileged resources, really a really nice backbone of staff that just have the money and the means of investing into their students, right? And then you have these maybe hybrid public schools, maybe it's, you call it, you want to see it through some charter schools that are trying to take the best worlds of
yeah,
private schools and public schools at the same time, really college oriented, like you mentioned, but definitely do not have the same opportunities or resources as private schools. And then you have these really, really large public schools that have thousands of kids that they just don't have the means or the resources to really invest into their students as much as they'd like, right? Not saying
yeah,
that high schools and large high schools in general don't have the means to, because there are definitely large public high schools across California, for example, that definitely have the resources to dabble into all that. But you also have the really large high schools that are in these low income areas that just don't have the means to really invest in their students. And so when I think about the spectrum of all these different types of schools, I'm really fortunate to be part of a small charter school that at the time was only 420 students, really
as a
college
whole, and like
oriented.
in those 4 years, it was like 400 something, right? So
Yeah.
some people may be listening like, oh, 400, we have 400 in our class. We had
Yeah.
400 for the entire high school.
Crazy to
like,
think about.
like 120 in our graduating class.
So, right. And I love this idea that within that school, right, within your small charter school, our small charter school, you took calculus, you took physics, and you really fell in love with math. And then you talked
Yeah.
about how that really propelled your interest in pursuing math at UCR, but also later on graduating with a mechanical engineering degree, similar to your father's, which is really also cool. But
Yeah, my brother studied computer science like my mom, so I was trying really hard to not be my parents, but like I was also just very lucky to know that like if my dad could graduate with mechanical engineering, like I could do it,
there you
So
go.
I was also very lucky in that respect.
Right. And then even your mom being, right, first generation
Yeah,
family member to pursue and graduate college, right? There's that, not necessarily a sense of obligation, but a sense to continue this stride of opportunity, right? That your family envisioned for yourself, and wanting to provide that for your brother also.
that was kind of my mom like carrying us. My mom was an excellent leader, but also my mom's
There you
just like a
go.
badass in general. Like she
Yeah.
came from Mexico to study in University of Texas at Paso. She was studying computer science when she didn't even know English all that well, so she knew like C
Dang.
plus plus better than
Plus.
English, right? And
Coding
uh,
language over English language. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So that was like my mom, like just carrying us as a leader, hardcore, just
Mm,
saying like this is what your future's gonna look like. This is why don't go out of bounds. And
mm,
as a single mom, like during 2008 recession and all of this going on, yeah,
right.
that was hard. So I was also really lucky to have her being my leader for my my first 17 years of life, and
That's awesome.
continues to be one still.
Yeah. Shout out to the moms that give us everything, right? But
Shout out to the moms, 100%.
that's lovely to hear that, you had a supportive mom, you had a really ideal role model mom. I mean, no parent is perfect. We all recognize that, in terms of they struggle so hard to bring us up in the ways that we are,
Yeah,
especially with, different minority groups where they have to work twice as hard as, other privileged families, of
yeah,
whether that's immigrating, right, into the US, or whatever the case may be, of just having to feel like you have to prove yourself, right,
yeah,
for the person next to you, saying that we can do it too, right? We're the same human beings, but we've gone through adversity, and how is that adversity going to motivate us to work twice as hard? And that's one thing that I really love about my parents too, right? Just coming from the Philippines, was this idea of overcoming adversity and really instilling that into my personality, of saying, if you want something, you're gonna have to work for it, right? And you're gonna have to
yeah,
find people that believe in your mission, and whether that's other minority supporters, but that's also just the kind of people that you surrounded with. I think one thing that always sticks with me, that my dad always used to nag me about, was, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are, right?
yeah.
And
My mom used to say the same thing. Yeah,
I don't know, like, I don't know if that's like a proverb that every,
every
like,
like
I don't
minority
know.
parent knows.
But it's apparently it's really true, right? It's really, who do you surround yourself with, even not even just when you were growing up, but even who do you surround yourself with right now? Like, what information are you putting into yourself? What kind of people are you surrounding yourself with that are
Yeah,
going to mold you, how you're going to become? Are you going to pursue like-minded people, or are you going to surround yourself with people that are always on the cusp of arguing with you, or on the cusp of challenging your beliefs, right? And
yeah,
it really, in this toxic environment, I mean, it's good to surround yourself with people that have different beliefs than you, but uh, you have to absorb what you can with a grain of salt, right? But besides all that, it's definitely, who do you surround yourself with, in terms of like-minded people that are going to support you and believe in you, but also be real with you and provide that criticism when you most need it. So
that's true.
I definitely believe in that. So thinking about, you mentioned your time in high school, loving math. We met through our love through science, right? So you
Science, the science bowl.
so you
Woo!
and you indirectly recruited me to join your science bowl team in high school,
Yeah,
and I'm especially grateful for that opportunity. But thinking to your time in high school, and then seeing it your time in college, I understand that you led an R&D group, so research and development lab, that put a rocket over 12,000 feet in the air while you were in college, and you actually received an award in that. So props to you. But when you went through that project, when you received Project of the Year for that. What did that award represent to you?
Honestly, we got the award, and I had something else to do that night, so I had some other team members receive it. The awards are nice, I guess. They're like nice validation that the org is doing something cool.
Right.
But like we knew we were doing something cool without the award anyways. It was just like like we're gonna get this, just shove it in other people's faces that we're doing cool. The rocket project, yeah. So I think like one of the reasons I was even able to do that was because of my time in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Our junior year is when we came into the science bowl at LPS Hayward, right? And it was just like a whole bunch of us like nerds. We're just like into math and science, and we were just practicing questions. And I remember we sold cookies to fundraise for these buzzers that we would be using, and then we partnered up with the school in front of us, and we would practice with them at night.
Yeah.
And then we just got obliterated our first year against these like private institutions. It was like these kids who just like knew everything about everything.
Yeah.
We came in way stronger that second year. I remember we went to like a completely different. We were at a completely different level that second year.
Yeah.
But I think one of the reasons I was able to pursue this student organization in college was because I had that experience doing it in high school.
Nice.
So just a quick shout out to Aerospace Systems. We founded in UC Riverside. It actually initially started out with like 7 of us, and then like 4 of them or something were like graduating. So we ended up with like 4 of us at the end of the day, and we're like, hey, like how are we gonna get this? How are we gonna do this? How are we gonna launch this rocket? So I got kicked out my second year. I came back in my third year,
right?
And I'm like. Luckily, I was only kicked out for a summer. I came back in that third year, and I was like, all right, like, I want to have like some tech company after college. I gotta prepare in some way, right? I want to do something cool, but also I want to be part of a group that's, smarter than me and more capable than me, and I just want to be able to contribute in a way.
Yeah.
So I like sought out. I heard of this like rocket organization, and I'm like. That's it. Like either I'm doing it like satellites in space. I'm sending satellites in space while in college, or I'm building a rocket. Like I don't care. It's one of those two. The satellite thing didn't exist yet, so I was like, all right, let's just check out this rocket group. And it kind of existed and it didn't exist. And so when I came in, it was like just like 7 of them, and I just like came in. I was like, hey, like I want to hear more about your group. Can I just like sit into your meetings? And it was like a close group of friends. So they're like, oh yeah. I kind of just joined. I was like, all right, let's just get in there. Yeah. And before I knew it, it was like we applied to be our own student organization. And then like our rocket blew up in like the first month. Like we had spare parts that we put together and we're like testing it. And then in the first month, like everything blew up. So it was like $3,000 worth of equipment that we were counting on for the entire rest of the year just blew up in like the first month. So we had to like reinvent ourselves right after that first month. And before you knew it, it was like 25 people. Wow. We had like NASA, we obtained NASA grants. We got that rocket 12,000 feet in space. And then when I transitioned to org, a quarter later, after I transitioned it, like this like hot shot comes in. It's like, hey, I want to fund your student organization.
Wow.
Let's make a laboratory for you guys in this airport. And I'll just fund all your equipment, and we'll take it from there. So like we got NASA grant. This guy like bought an entire airport. Didn't buy an entire. He bought an airport hangar.
Yeah.
And just gave it to us, and like all this equipment to just like do stuff in.
Wow.
And then like the leadership that we passed it on to like knew how to take care of those opportunities, and I just saw them on Instagram like last week, and they're still going like mad strong. Like these kids are in college and just like killing it over here with like rockets, like posting all this stuff. It's honestly incredible. But yeah, we won a few awards too. those 2 plaques, those were nice.
That's awesome.
On our student org tables.
Like hang them up or put them on the side.
Yeah, just on the little tables. So, hey, this is who we are. This is what we won.
When I think back to high school, right, the small group in our science bowl team, and you know, shout out to that team because, like you said, I love how you mentioned that our first year we were going in blind, right? We've all
Completely blind.
never
We literally
participated in
just
science
decided
bowl.
to do it without knowing what it was. And I don't know if you remember, but the first meeting was at Eon Cafe,
Yep, I
and it was
remember.
at 6 a.m. on a Saturday.
Yeah, you made us
Like,
wake up
what?
really early for that.
I just wanted to make sure we had a dedicated team,
That's
and like
true.
all of you guys showed up. I think like at most, like everyone was like 10 minutes late, maybe, but everyone was showing. Like one person showed up before me. That was Ryan Burbridge. He was
There
like
you
half an
go.
hour there before I was. Like, oh, like all right. I showed up like at 5:50. He was like there at 5:30. On a Saturday morning, on a decision that we're gonna do this. That was
Yeah,
completely wild.
but right, this opportunity that came about to just take our small group from Hayward, California, or even like leadership public schools in general, and compete at this statewide science bowl was, at least
Yeah,
for me, an opportunity that I never thought I'd imagine. Like I've always loved science, but I never thought I was capable of competing at this. Right, you see science bowls on TV or you see science bowls in the movies, and right, everyone knows pretty much everything when it comes to science. But for me, I couldn't let that opportunity pass where I could say that I was a part of something like that. So very grateful for that. Came back second year and, contributing to what we did and being able to move on, even beating one of the other schools was definitely a
it was
huge,
nuts.
that was crazy for us
It
because
was nuts.
we're just a group of kids that, wanted to challenge what it meant to be from a school,
Yeah,
small
we just
charter school, and compete at a statewide science bowl. So even that was a huge accomplishment in itself. But I think it was like when you said it was that moment that gave you this opportunity to pursue this wonderful organization, creating this R&D lab in an airport hangar, flying rockets, right? I think that's
yeah,
like
that was
every
dope.
kid's dream, right? Even in science class in elementary school or middle school, maybe you made like a Pepsi rocket, right, out of,
Oh,
Mentos
that's the
and
cool
whatnot.
part. So we were doing this for our competition, right? But we also
Yeah.
like through these like giant PR events for like Riverside was very much like Hayward
Yeah.
when we were there. So it's a lot of high schools that were just kind of like underrepresented.
Yeah.
The cool thing was like being able to host events as a entire like engineering school and say like, hey, these are all the projects you get to work on,
Yeah.
and just like teach people like, hey, like rockets are possible for people coming from our background. Like
Yeah.
that's how you do it.
There
And
you
then we did
go.
like our rockets at some engineering events, and
Right.
it was really cool. Not only to grow up from that kind of environment in
Mm-hmm.
Hayward, but like to take it to Riverside and say, hey, like this is what it takes, and this is how you can do
Yeah.
it, and like actually, I don't know, connect with them in a certain way
Definitely.
that other people might not be able to.
Yeah. Definitely translational, right? The culture or the environment from coming from Hayward and seeing that happen in Riverside. But like I was saying, it was right. It's every kid's dream to fly a rocket, and for you to actually fly a legitimate rocket where you got
It was
funded.
dope.
I think that's super
It
cool,
was
and
dope.
just because we both love science, so that's pretty awesome. But you spoke you're getting into next question, and I love how you have your heart set on science, you have your heart set on technology, and you got into entrepreneurship in college and post
Yeah.
graduation. So I know that you were heavily invested in learning about entrepreneurship, and you currently work for Amazon right now. My
Yep.
question is where do you see the work of large corporations like Amazon in moving the needle in terms of investing in communities and furthering society in general? But also a second part question of how do you see yourself playing a part in all of that?
Yes, I can actually, in this last month alone, actually the last 2 to 3 weeks, this opportunity came up, which
Mm,
I didn't even know something like this could exist. But it's a dream. It's almost trippy to be part of it. When I think of some of the most impactful problems that there are to solve
mm-hmm.
in the world,
Yeah.
among those top ones is creating a sustainable future,
There you
energy
go.
wise.
Yep.
Like how do we stop contributing to these carbon emissions, and how do we
Yeah.
push the planet in a much greener way?
Yeah.
And I always thought like like people recycle, but like it's not the consumers that are really directly contributing to this by not recycling and throwing trash away. It's like, we purchase products that we make that are not green, and these corporations have to like amass so much energy to make these products and run their
production.
operations.
Yeah.
So I'm like, the only way to really solve this is, number one, just something whatever Elon Musk is doing, was just like, I'm going to create green vehicles so everyone can drive in a green way. But bring down the emissions of a corporation. And for me, working at a place where like Amazon is like where we set the standards of what corporations are meant to be, right? It's not like
crazy.
Like we have enough profit and revenue and like enough pool to basically say like, no, world, this is how we're gonna do it, and you better roll with us. We're not gonna buy from you to do our business or whatever.
Wow.
That's crazy cool. So I think like if any corporation is gonna change the game into how we think about becoming green and building a renewable future, it's gonna have to start at the top from like Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon pledged by 2040 to have a net zero carbon footprint.
Wow.
So just to give some background, I work within the engineering, planning, and analytics organization in Amazon, specifically in the configuration and change management team. Okay. All of this is very fancy talk for saying we're the team that helps, the team that designs the fulfillment centers. So we're always pushing out new fulfillment centers. So we're trying to get that 1 hour delivery if possible to everyone, which means having a fulfillment center right next to your door. So we're always just designing and pumping out fulfillment centers left and right in the world. So we have a design team that does that. Our team specifically, if you look at a fulfillment center as an entire puzzle, every single puzzle piece and every change to a puzzle piece goes through our team. And that's kind of how I'm involved in everything. But recently, what was really cool is engineering, planning, and analytics started getting involved into seeing how we can impact this 2040 goal. And it just happened. Like it's one of the people inside Christian Karen was actually the one that said like, hey, 2040 is coming up sooner than we think.
Yeah.
I don't know why our team isn't getting involved in this, because in order to make a operation sustainable, like they have to go through us. They have to go through there's no other way to get into the design of these fulfillment centers and the operations without going through our team. It just doesn't happen. It designs the fulfillment centers. We got to start reaching out and seeing what we can do. And so now we're at a point where we're given enough leash by our managers to kind of explore and pursue this idea of how we can make Amazon's operations sustainable. And like if Amazon sets a standard and everyone goes after it, like we're directly impacting this corporations that map the world on sustainable energy. And I'm really happy I get to just be part of that in some indirect or direct way. I'm like on Christian Karen, just like talking like, all right, how are we gonna do this? Like what do you need us to do? Like and it's just cool that our managers in Amazon, like that's not my primary focus. I have like my primary role and responsibilities. Yeah. But our manager would give us enough leash to explore things that we're passionate about too. To see how far we can take it.
Dang, right. I think it's a lot of us think about Amazon as this huge entity that plays a part in so many aspects of our life, right? I can really water it down in a sense of, right, they just invest in so many different companies, right? Yeah. And they have so many different investments and therefore have a lot of influence in different parts of our life, right? Whether business, commerce, right, tech, all these different aspects. But then I love how you talked about that one of their new initiatives, but also one of their primary focuses right now is about sustainability, right? And I think being advocated for, right, this conversation of climate change is really big right now, of where do our priorities lie in terms of sustaining the environment or caring for the environment, and what are we really going to do about it when you see wildfires, you see natural disasters happening all across the world at a record-breaking rate. What are we going to do for our environment? And I love how Amazon is stepping up to that plate in a sense of how are we going to be more sustainable to lower our carbon emissions, our carbon footprint, so that we can set a standard, so we can set a model for other companies to really care about the same issues that we're caring about. Because
Yeah.
I have different opinions or different thoughts when it comes to Amazon because I used to work for Amazon. But to hear stories about sustainability, to hear stories about focusing on the environment really does hit home for me because I do care about our environment. And a lot of people that may
Yeah.
be watching or a lot of people that may be listening, they care about the environment too, right? And maybe the priorities of what to care for in the environment may be up for debate, but there's this general consensus that we need to do something to lower
Now.
carbon
Yeah.
emissions, that we need to do something that carries on, that really considers the next generation of entrepreneurs, that considers the next generation of people so that they can live in a better, if not better, world than what we're going through right now. And a lot of that is thinking about climate change on the plate right now, not
Right
thinking it's a
now.
2040, it's not a 2040 goal, it's a 2020 goal where we can see our results in 2040, right?
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
something that we need to be really present oriented in. I like how Amazon's stepping up in the plate for that. I really do hope that other large corporations, like you mentioned, Microsoft, Google, Apple, I really hope they do see what other companies are doing alongside that. And I know that every company is doing it in their own way, right? But really being people or, right, being consumer oriented in a sense that how are we going to be helping out our people, right? Our
Yeah.
consumers. How are we going to be thinking about what we do as a company, what we do as a corporation, and really think about the people that are supporting us? Because, right, there's investment and money goes a long way, and there's a huge chain that even I don't understand in terms of where money comes from. But when we think about the consumer, people like you and me that buy
Yeah.
products from Amazon, or people that don't buy products from Amazon, maybe they buy locally, small business, but those small businesses still try to partner with Amazon in some way, right?
Yeah.
How are we being cared for when in terms of we care for the environment, we care about how these products are being made and how they're being manufactured and how they're being consumed? How are companies like Amazon contributing to a more greener, sustainable world when it comes to that? And I think that it's nice that that question is being answered to some capacity. And I loved how you mentioned that maybe it's not always in the conversation of how are we playing a role in climate change, but how are these large companies playing a role in climate change and what are they doing
Yeah.
to step up to the plate? Because we can
And just
talk
to,
about, yeah, go for it.
yeah. So, and I think so. One of the reasons that Amazon's doing it first, or why I'm pointing it out, is
Yeah.
Amazon is very customer obsessed. So we really
Yeah.
only care about what our customers care about. So if our customers didn't care at all about this green net zero carbon emissions, like we're not
Mm-hmm.
gonna care, right? When you mention like where does the money come from, at the end of the day, it comes from like these off daily purchases that the
Yeah.
consumer they just pile up, right? And that's where the
Yeah.
money comes from. But I think it's really cool to see kind of consumers also step up and say like, I'm buying, renewable products that are made of this. There's like if you go to the X Price
Yeah.
website, there's like vodka made out of CO2. So like there's a whole bunch of
Dang.
like green products coming out
Yeah.
because people are like now willing to say like, yes, I'll pay like $1 extra for
Yeah.
something that was made this way instead of this way.
Mm-hmm.
So a huge shout out also to just like customers that are doing this and just saying
Yeah.
like I'm responsible for the earth too, and I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
vote for that direction with my
Mm-hmm.
dollar.
Yeah. No company's perfect. I think that's really something that's important to recognize, right? Every
Yeah,
company is not perfect and there's always going to be problems within a company, but I like hearing stories about how are we using our power, how are we using our privilege, how are we using our capacity to really contribute to a better world in some areas, right? No
yeah,
company can solve all the problems in the world, and I think that's really important to recognize, right? Even with a company like Amazon that has so many hands in different places, at least
yeah,
one of their hands, right? At least one of their reaches or capacities is thinking about sustainability. And I like how for a company that is always manufacturing or at least always pumping out products in different areas and having all these fulfillment centers, like you said. I used to work in a fulfillment center. How are we going to make at least their operations a little bit more greener, right? And
Yeah.
that's something that we can all appreciate, whether we support Amazon by buying from them or we don't, right? How are we still in this conversation of acknowledging what are these different companies trying to do? And I think it's a good
Yeah.
highlight or a good story to mention of, Amazon's trying to do this, and that's something that we can appreciate in the end.
On board, 100% on board.
Yep. So we talked a lot about your upbringing. We talked a lot about your love for science, your love for math. We talked about your experiences in college and post-graduation working for Amazon. So I'll put you in a situation, Omar, and I just want you to respond to it, okay?
Sure.
You're about to embark in time travel 10 years into the future, right?
Okay.
What do you hope to see in yourself and hope to be true in your life?
Holy cow, man. 10 years into the future. I don't even know if I can answer that like 2 years into the future.
10 You're about to time travel.
So I don't really, no matter what I say, I'm sure it's going to change at some point. But I have noticed that there are things that haven't changed. And I'm just going to piggyback off of Miss Decker's podcast, actually, that I saw yesterday over here in the katchupwithkestner podcast.
Yeah.
She mentioned how when she looks at her advisory role, her counseling profession within LPS Hayward High Schools, she thinks about like, how do I help people reach the goals they set out to themselves? Like, what problem do you want to solve, and then how can I help you get there with my skill set?
Definitely.
And I resonated with that a lot because I think that's the right way to approach like any profession. It's like how when I look about what I like to do is I like to think I like to dig into people's answers, like question like, what kind of life do you want to live?
Yeah. What
kind of like even short term or long term future do you want for yourself? And then what do you need to help you get there? So the way I do is very different from Ms. Decker. I like to ask people that all the time and then figure out what kind of product might help them get there faster or better. So like, when you think about even the Kindle, which is like, it's a reading tablet, basically, like
revolutionary, by the way.
Yeah, but it's not that different from an iPad if you think about it. But at the same time, because of its design, it's also just very different from an iPad.
Yeah.
The entire reason the Kindle was brought up was like, well, books have existed for so long, and people read books for a lot of different reasons. But it is to self-improve, to read stories, to grow themselves, to go in these emotional journeys within a story.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of reasons why people read books, but at the end of the day, like we're reading books to kind of grow. And the question I was asked was like, well, how do we help people grow from reading books, and how do we make it better for them? Like what's a really small problem that a lot of people have that could help move us forward in some way? And so Amazon set out to reinvent the book, and they're like, how do we reinvent it? And there was a review that was by Stephen King actually on the Kindle when it first came out, which was when I started reading on the Kindle, it was like the first 10 minutes, it was very obvious. I was pressing a button. I was very much using this technological tablet to read. But 10 minutes in, it was just me and the story, and I was engrossed. And all I could think about was that story. Like that was it. When you get into a book real good, you don't even notice the pages. You don't notice the buttons anymore. And to think that I can now read this story and many more stories from just a single small tablet that could last, like the battery lasts like forever. Like that's an amazing product, because now I'm able to grow through reading in the same way that I was a book. But when I'm traveling, I can't take all my books, right? And now I can. So I'm always like very interested in how to help people live their everyday lives in a slightly better way. Through, the invention of a new product. So I think like 10 years down the line, I don't think that would change a lot. I
Nice.
think I'll continue thinking about like how can I design or make or contribute to a product that helps people live their everyday lives better.
Yeah.
One big goal that I do have set out for myself, it's actually two. Back to LPS Hayward, such a fun foundational experience for me. We were like 16, 17, we were sponges back then. But we had this thing called Senior Sunset, or Senior Sunrise, where the entire class, that graduating class, comes to the high school before the sun even comes out.
Yeah.
Which was like, whoever thought of that, by the way, and thought like, yeah, we'll just bring the high schoolers over here, we'll make them wake up early. Like the confidence of that staff member, I'm betting it was one era. And we were offered to just speak, right? Like, yeah, a minute and a half, or however long you need.
Yeah.
If you want to say anything to your graduating class, now's the time to say it. And so a lot of us went up there and we're like, got in front of our class and we're like, oh, this is my life, my story. This is what I want to do. And I knew I wanted to get up there, so it was like a line. I got on the line. I didn't know what I was going to say next. And then I got in front of the crowd, and I still didn't know what to say. And then words just came out of my mouth. And I somehow ended up saying something along the lines of, I want to help end a war. And I don't know why that was. It could be like I was influenced by like the anime I was into back then, or it could be anything. But the song just never left my mind since that Senior Sunrise.
Wow.
And so I still kind of goal of mine. I don't know how far I can get to it. I don't know, how much I can even contribute to it. But I know like whatever that is, like that's something I'm not always thinking about, but I'm very actively thinking about more regularly than I'd like sometimes. And so even during college, I always ask myself this, like, all right, so what am I going to do? Like, how are we going to do this? What's the rule of war? And then I kind of came up with some first iteration answer for like, it has to do with the distribution of resources, and that people can't agree on how to redistribute these resources. And it has to do with the ideology that justifies this distribution of resources. I'm like, all right, fair game. How about we make like unlimited resources available to everyone in a finite world? So I'm like, all right, what's a good way to do that? And then somewhere along the lines where I got kicked out of school after my sophomore year, like 3 weeks in, I started thinking about that again. And during one time, I was going to the bathroom, taking my phone with me. I was scrolling through stuff, and I found an article on asteroid mining. And then suddenly, like, it just clicked in my head, like the way to help end war through tackling the problem of how do we best redistribute resources is to help create a gateway into unlimited resources, which meant opening up kind of space to harvest those resources. I'm like, asteroid mining is what's going to get us there. Wow. And so now my goal is asteroid mining. So now I'm like 10 years down the line. I don't know how far I can get again. I'm not Elon Musk. I'm not Jeff Bezos. But I know, like, I'm sure as hell going to try. I don't know why I want to try this bad, but it's just something that stuck with me for the longest time now. It's almost become an obsession. And I even write about it in I released an article this year, actually, in April, talking about it. But yeah, like I'll be doing two things. I'll be pursuing asteroid mining in some way or another, and I'll be looking out about how I can make everyday people's lives better incrementally through products. That's going to stay the same.
Love how you mentioned your short-term goal and long-term goal, right? This short-term goal of finding some type of product or focusing on product design of how to make everyone's life better and easier, because that's definitely part of our lives right now, is always finding the next product that's going to make our life easier. So wanting to contribute to that, but also this long-term goal of solving wars in the sense of not everyone has the right resources. Not everyone has access to resources. If we're so caught up on who gets what, why don't we search for a source that's going to provide all that, right? And
Yeah.
there's different ways that you could look at that, but I love that you have a short-term goal, a long-term goal, and right, just thinking about who you are, Omar, always a visionary, and I love how
I don't know about that. It's just I'm
you always have goals for yourself. You have big dreams for yourself, and that's part of your personality. You're gonna go get it. You're a go-getter. If you want it for yourself, you're gonna find a way
thank
for
you,
it to
Kessler.
happen. But I loved how we talked about so many different things, and I always appreciated you for that spirit of if you want it, you're gonna find a way to get it. And I think that's something that we can all learn from, in a sense. But Omar,
I'm gonna
it's
put that in my
been
journal today.
nice.
Kessler called me a go-getter.
Yeah, Omar's a go-getter. But before we wrap things up, Omar, quick
Yeah,
shout out. If you could shout out two people that should get on the podcast, who are they?
Justin Ibsen,
Justin.
popcorn style on you.
All right,
Justin
that's Justin's
Ibsen.
one.
Second one, I have a few people in mind, so I gotta be really good about who I nominate on this one. You know what? Brianna Fregoso. Yeah.
Right. So shout outs to Justin and Brianna. Hopefully you're coming
Yeah.
soon if you're listening. But thank you so much again, Omar, for
Yeah, thanks for
catching
having
up with me.
Catching up with
Appreciate you.
Kessler.
Yep. Appreciate you always. For everyone else, thank you so much for listening. Go ahead, leave a comment. Tell me what your thoughts are about today's episode. But Omar, until the next time, I'll talk to you later.
Bye, guys.